hey, as I said, I was fine at 102, and I'm fine at 94. But I think people are feeling a little bit of pep in their step today because it's not so oppressive to some of you. But again, thanks for hanging out with us. Tons of football to get to. JD PicKell of On3 Sports with us in 15 minutes. It's a What If Wednesday. Get to those at 1:30. Basketball has its non-conference schedule out. Some reasonable names on it. We'll talk about it at the end of hour number 1. In the second hour, I want to get to some of the non-conference games for Southeastern Conference teams this year. Of course, we know LSU and Florida State, but some of the others, and I've kind of taken a brief look at the opponents in those games, as I'll no doubt be pulling for whoever's playing the SEC team when we get around to those games. The Saints are headed off to Los Angeles. Talk about last spots around the 53 that will start to come into focus over the next 3 weeks. Got some sound from LSU camp, which we'll get to here very, very shortly. Got Casey Gaines and Jacob Beck back there on the ones and twos. So lock in with us here for an hour. I was out of practice briefly today. Have some thoughts, but I think the sound from Brian Kelly is a little bit more interesting than what I have to say about practice. The buzz over the last 48 hours, 72 hours, has been about cornerback Denver Harris and his absence from practice. Rumors flying. We didn't really speculate on anything, but Brian Kelly was directly asked today about Denver Harris.
Denver is handling some personal matters, and if he takes care of everything, could have him back this weekend.
Pretty straightforward. I think there's reason to believe Denver Harris will be back when school starts. I don't know what's going on. I don't know. I know when he's out at practice, he runs with the third team and some with the second team and never with the first team. I know that he hasn't been out there for 4 days now. I don't know what has happened. I don't know what the personal issues are. And honestly, from where I'm sitting and honestly where you're sitting, it's not that important. The question is, can he take care of what he needs to take care of and come back and get to work? Fact of the matter is the secondary is beginning to take shape largely without him. And he's probably the most talented guy in that room. But prior to him stepping away from practice 4 days ago, he wasn't working with the ones. So if he comes back and helps you, that's great. I think at this point, you go out there and play Florida State. Got Jordan Travis under center. We went through the top 100 players in college football yesterday. Florida State's got 2 wide receivers on that list. Denver Harris is not necessarily in the mix, in my opinion, to play meaningful snaps in that game. Things can change over the next 2 weeks, but as we sit here right now, not the case. The other guy who's been missing a little bit here and there is Mason Smith. I told you I was out at practice on Saturday when he went down with a leg injury. He was down for about 5 minutes. He hopped up, kind of jogged gingerly off the field, took some water. He came right over next to the media. He said, somebody asked him, "Hey, you okay?" He said, "Yeah, I'm good." He spent the next couple of days working off to the side in full pads. He was there, but he just wasn't going through all the contact stuff. Today, he was out there. He was going through the full contact stuff, but seemed to get banged up again. It didn't appear to be anything serious, but Brian Kelly was asked, "Hey, Big Mason Smith, how's he doing?"
He's been banged up a little bit. Nothing that we're overly concerned with. There's no structural damage to any joints or, things of that nature. But, look, he's been out for a year, and everything hurts a little bit more after coming back into it. But he had an ankle sprain, nothing that we were really too concerned with, but we're concerned with everything, right, when you have a player of his caliber. So we're going to be careful with him.
I think it's just precautionary. Sure, he probably a little banged up, doesn't feel 100%, and you'd like to feel as close to 100% as you can in the middle of August because it only goes downhill from here. But at this point, he's still very much your starter defensive tackle. He's still very much one of the best players on your defense. It's been a bumpy camp. That's the best way you can put it for Mason Smith. Been a bumpy camp. Couple of nicks and bruises here. Nothing that needs a trip to the hospital or an MRI or anything significant. Just, hey, this doesn't feel great today. All right, well then go ride the bike and hit the sleds. Okay, you can sit out this drill of full contact. You're okay where you are. And hopefully he continues to feel a little bit better over the next week, 10 days, and can be ready to roll full speed ahead for game planning for Florida State. And is ready to go this Sunday before Labor Day. But as far as significant issues go, nothing there as far as Mason Smith goes. So that's kind of an update on some of the bigger names that have been somewhat absent from camp. You've had some running backs banged up. Josh Williams has been in and out. Armani Goodwin's got the big brace, and he's trying to run around a little bit. And you kind of had some guys in and out of the mix in a really, really deep running back room. But Brian Kelly talked about the advantage of having 8 running backs.
With the depth of running back, I think we all know that. I think you guys have been out here at times where, we've only had 4 running backs that were actually healthy at one time. So even with the number of 8 sounds, crazy. There's the natural wear and tear on backs that we want to keep them healthy. And so where I think that real advantage is that we can keep these guys fresh throughout the entire season.
I think there's something to that. I think there's something to the fact that you're not going to have a guy who runs for 1,600 yards on this team. Quinshon Judkins and Rocket Sanders are on this team. Leonard Fournette's not on this team. That's not the way this is going to work, and you know that as the listener. You're paying attention to the football team. You know they got a million running backs, and none of them are garnering All-American attention at this point. But running backs going to get banged up. We see that with most of them. You're going to see ankles rolled, hips injured, maybe a shoulder here and there. And that's happened in camp. And LSU's always going to have another guy to put in there. Theoretically, if Josh Williams can't go, well, Noah Cain's been a starting running back in the Big Ten and carried some workload here at LSU. John Emery's talented enough to go out there and carry the football. So you're okay there. If Emery's not available, Armani Goodwin is a talented guy when healthy. You can give the ball to Logan Diggs. He's been the leading rusher at Notre Dame. Like, you've got enough guys to where, 1, you can recover from injuries, and 2, if you go to a different guy in the third quarter who hadn't touched it yet, and he's got fresh legs, and they've been trying to run around and tackle Logan Diggs and John Emery for 2.5 hours, there's a fresh leg component to that works in your favor. And I do want to mention one running back here that I have a couple of times, but just to file away somewhere like under the pillow, maybe under the bed, not front and center. You're not prominently displaying this here, but this is just something to kind of think about. I'm really liking the way Caleb Jackson looks out there. He just got such an imposing size. We know the speed pops on tape, and we've seen on the GPS numbers that he runs really fast. I still believe that the veteran 4 are going to carry the majority of this. Williams, Emery, Diggs, Cain. That's the majority of the carries. I think Bradford and the 2 freshmen fall short of that. But Caleb Jackson looks the part, and I'm really hopeful that he is the next guy that in August we're talking about all conference level back. Like that's really seems doable to me. And you look at the commitment you got from Caden Durham, who would be a class behind him, and you look at what Trey Holly did in high school, and you go, maybe that's the kind of the reemergence of the star-studded running back room at LSU. You play the hand you're dealt, and this hand is depth, fresh legs, ability to withstand some injury, veteran. Like those are the cards LSU has to play as far as their running back room. You don't have the ace, but you got a lot of face cards. And so that's what they're going to have to do. But for another day, I really like what Caleb Jackson looks like at this point. And hopefully he's given some opportunities in some mop-up time this year and has an opportunity to help this team in some capacity, because I think he's got a lot of talent. We'll hear a little bit more from Brian Kelly as well as Deuce Chestnut coming up in the second hour. I want to talk a little about Omar Spates. I want to talk a little bit about the offensive line and how that depth is coming along, because we know what the front of that offensive line looks like. We know what the returners are with Campbell and Jones, Dellinger, Frazier. You know that you've got Charles Turner. But what's next? And that went into my conversation yesterday about, hey, who's the most indispensable player on this team? And I went with Will Campbell because I just don't know what it looks like. Brian Kelly talked a little bit about that earlier today, so we'll talk about that when we get to it a little bit later on in the show. What If Wednesday coming up in 20 minutes. I've gotten a lot of those on Twitter. If you got some in the Bayou Ford chat, we are all eyes, and we'll plug those in if we see them fit. Hoops non-conference schedule came out. That's the end of hour number 1. We'll get into some SEC chatter as well in hour number 2 when we get to the Saints as well. But we will take a timeout. It is Wednesday. It is pushing 1:15. That means it's time to chat with our guy from On3 Sports, JD PicKell. He's next on the Hunt Palmer Show.
You're listening to Hunt Palmer. In times of need, get a full list of phone numbers, websites, and other important emergency information on the Demco Stormwatch page at 1045ESPN.com.
There it is, the extra mile, on the border of expected and extraordinary for those willing to go further, like vans customized for work or play, with safety and tech to keep you connected, supported by a 5-star sales, service, and finance team, and backed by the 1-star you know. So go the extra mile. It's never crowded, because so few have what it takes to go there. Mercedes-Benz Vans.
Hi, I'm Brandon Landry, founder and CEO of Walker.
Hi, my name is Dr. Craig Green.
This is Ryan Terrio with HUDCoRoofing.com.
Hey, it's Matt Moscona. No matter how big your commercial roofing job, HUDCO can help.
My patients come to me because they trust that I can get the job done at a high level. Ryan Terrio and Richard Tilley have the same level of trust when it comes to roofing.
If you have a roofing issue, call HUDCO Roofing.
Give us a call, 364-1007, and we'll come to your house and give you a free inspection.
The Windsor Senior Living Community in Mandeville, Louisiana is a beautiful, vibrant apartment community geared towards seniors. They are nestled right in the heart of Mandeville, where seniors live a more carefree lifestyle in spacious apartments with the peace of mind that comes from having a little extra help. Call the Windsor at 985-624-8040 to schedule a lunch and tour. Come see how the Windsor can be your passport to peace of mind.
I've been doing business with Luba for 25 years. They're dependable, trustworthy. It's just the attention to detail with our clients.
Our folks have years and years of experience. They're highly trained professionals, but many companies have that asset. What I'd like to think makes Luba a bit different is that we use those talents in a way that truly is dedicated to serving the needs of the folks who depend on us.
Gulf Coast Office Products is a nationally recognized Savin office equipment dealer based right here in Louisiana. Over 100 employees strong, Gulf Coast has the boots on the ground to support all vertical markets from education, engineering, legal, and finance. With the latest in office technology from desktop to production segment units, Gulf Coast and Savin have the perfect fit for you. Call 225-756-2644. That's 756-2644 for Gulf Coast Office Products.
When is a taco more than just a taco? When it's Government Taco. Voted best tacos 3 years in a row by 225 Magazine, Government Taco puts the most delicious spin on tacos the capital area has ever seen. With creative combinations like the Magna Carrot, the Filibuster, or the Steak of the Union. Plus perfect tortilla chips paired with the best salsa and queso you've ever had. And happy hour every day from 3 to 6 p.m. and all day on Thursday. Government Taco, 5621 Government Street.
Moscona inviting you to join us for Wednesday's Hump Day AFR presented by Pluckers. Brian Kelly meets with reporters after practice. We'll let you hear what the head coach has to say, and we'll get you an update from Saints camp. Join us 3 to 6, 1045 ESPN Baton Rouge.
This is Hunt Palmer on 1045 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Shout out to Jim's Firearms Hotline. Our guy JD PicKell, host of the Hard Count on On3 Sports YouTube channel, with us each and every Wednesday. JD, how's it going, man?
Hunt, We're back. 10 days, baby. Let's roll. Doing phenomenal, man. How are you?
I'm well. You're a big week 0 guy. You're locked in for week 0.
It all counts, as long as they're keeping score. They got 11 dudes out there, 11 on 11. Like we're locked and loaded. I mean, I'm glad that we actually have scrimmages to talk about too, and they're locking those up, and we're still just hearing whispers and buzz and intel. But no, I do honor week 0. It's a nice little appetizer for the entree.
We're gonna go big picture today. We'll get into we're 2 weeks away from matchups, maybe some predictions next week, but let's go big picture, and we'll start in the SEC. How many teams in the Southeastern Conference have a real, legitimate chance to win their division?
A real legitimate chance to win their division. I'm going to say 4. I'm going to say Tennessee and Georgia are probably the ones you would argue for in the East. Now, don't get it twisted. Tennessee's chances to win the East are much slimmer than anybody else, or excuse me, not anybody else, much slimmer than Georgia's. In the West, I think it's LSU and Bama. And so that's kind of been the 4 that have all been the talking points throughout this whole offseason. So I think Tennessee is probably the slimmest of the 4 to be able to get over the hump and to beat Georgia and represent the SEC in Atlanta. But those are the 4 that I'm rolling with. On Ole Miss, I could see it, but I don't have enough confidence in their quarterback room. And I just think LSU and Bama are going to be too stacked.
I mean, Ole Miss, A&M, South Carolina would kind of be the other places I think you could have a discussion. None of those work for you?
I think the discussion is so interesting, but I think as long as we're having the discussion, I think I end up at the same place with all of them. Good team, probably make some noise, could definitely ruin somebody's shot at getting to Atlanta. But if I line Alabama up out there with South Carolina, or I line LSU up out there with South Carolina, I don't feel extremely confident in where South Carolina would stand or Texas A&M would stand, even though of what they did last year against LSU, which I know Tiger fans are trying to wipe from their memory currently. I think when you line it up out there, I would have a hard time not setting that line at double digits favoring LSU and Bama against any of those teams.
Do all 4 of the teams that you think have a legitimate chance to win their division have a legitimate chance to win the national championship?
I'm going to go ahead and say 3 of them do. I think LSU has a very real case. I think Alabama has a very real case. I think Georgia has a very real case. I just need to see more from Tennessee on defense, which has kind of been the talking point of the entire offseason for them in Knoxville. You can't allow 280 yards passing a game and expect to compete with the Michigans and Ohio States and the others we just mentioned in the SEC. So I think the way that those teams are built up front gives me some confidence that if they were to make the dance, they could make a real run at it, especially for what it would mean for LSU. I mean, if LSU makes the college football playoff, it means they either ran through the SEC and lost in the SEC title game, or they won the SEC outright. And that probably means that some really good things happened offensively, and Jaden Daniels got wheeling and dealing. So that's kind of where I fall right now with LSU and then the other 2.
Speaking of Tennessee, where are you on Joe Milton?
Man, I really like him. I really like him, and not just in a I hope he's good kind of way. I think we have some real proof of concept from what we got to see against Clemson, which is encouraging. So it'd be one thing if it was just him throwing down backflips and throwing the ball 90 yards, but we had never seen this dude have any success on a football field. I keep going back to this. I think the fact that he's been benched twice, what that does for you from a mental standpoint, I think that hardens you. I think that changes the way that you approach the game. And I also think it brings a tremendous amount of respect for him in the locker room, which, I mean, at the very least, I think it's something to consider when you talk about Tennessee this coming season, how they're going to be led by him. So but the tools have never been the question. I think the big thing for him, because we kind of unpacked it on our show once, hey, what if he did get benched? What would have to happen? I think a lot of Tennessee's success offensively relies on that running game. We remember Hendon Hooker throwing it deep. We remember Jalen Hyatt catching touchdowns against Bama and just all the aired out Sports Center kind of plays they made. But they ran the ball 55% of the time last year. So if they can run the football effectively and allow Joe Milton to play within himself and have those deep shots downfield open because of the pressure that puts on defenses, I think he's going to be just fine.
They ran it for about 10 yards a pop in Tiger Stadium. I know that. I think it was Jabari Small. Is that the name that comes to mind? They got whatever they wanted on the ground that day. They got pretty much whatever they wanted on offense that day. That was quite a performance by Josh Heupel's crew. Let's go to the ACC. How many teams can win the league?
I think it's 2.
Yeah.
I like Drake May Drake May doesn't play defense in North Carolina, unfortunately. I like Riley Leonard. I don't think they have the firepower at Duke to hold serve against a team like a Florida State or like a Clemson. Like, it really does come down to those two teams. I think they're on a crash course. Hunt, I think we're going to see that game twice. I think we'll see it in week 4, and I think we'll see it in the rematch in the ACC title game. I like Miami. I think they're probably still a little bit in transition mode with hitting the reset button on the staff there and what our Cristobal's doing. So I think when you look at who you had to bet on between those two, I think Clemson and Florida State are the two that I would lean on. And tell you what, a lot of people in Clemson, South Carolina, waiting with bated breath to see what this offense looks like between Garrett Riley calling the shots and Cade Klubnik now wheeling and dealing. Because, I mean, they've had a good defense for a while, but having consistent quarterback play has escaped them in Death Valley. The other Death Valley, I know, being on the Louisiana airwaves, I'll say the other Death Valley.
You know the Men in Black memory eraser that they've got? I'm going to give you that for the last 10 years. Just scrub the last 10 years totally. Now you have to bet on moving forward Norvell at Florida State or Dabo at Clemson. Who do you like over the next 5-7 years?
Well, I'm glad you hit me with a memory spray, because my first thought was to a memory I thought I had of what Mike Norvell had done the last couple of years at Florida State, and then I just realized I don't remember those things.
Nah?
You know, I think, gosh, that's a great question for the next 10 years. You know, I'm gonna lean towards Florida State, because if Dabo Swinney refuses to adapt to the portal, at some point in time, that's going to hurt him. And it could be a thing where it hurts them this year if they have issues, you know, offensively they didn't address through the portal, and they play a team like Florida State who's built this thing through the portal the last 2 years. I think if you're setting a trajectory, Dabo Swinney needs to adapt more than he is right now, in my mind. But that doesn't take anything away from the way that he's coached football. And if you look historically, you probably lean the other way. So I think with the future of college football, with the transfer portal, with the way things are built right now, with Florida State being in the hotbed that is the state of Florida when it comes to recruiting, and if they can get that thing rolling, I'm actually going to lean Mike Norvell here.
And obviously, you know, Dabo would like Cade Klubnik to be closer to Trevor Lawrence or Deshaun Watson than DJU, but we'll figure that out. We'll figure that out this year. Let's go to the Big Ten. We know Ohio State and Michigan are real threats. We don't really even need to discuss them. Anybody else worth talking about up there in terms of maybe winning the league, getting into the playoff? Is it Wisconsin? Is it Penn State?
Man, it's got to be those two, right? I mean, Wisconsin, this is kind of their one shot, like Eminem. Like, you know, knees are weak, arms are heavy probably. This is their moment, even though it's 1 year under Mike Norvell. Like, next year, there's no more Big Ten West. And Hunt, last year, Purdue got to Indianapolis with a smooth 8-4 record. And so for Wisconsin, when you shuffle the deck and you take away divisions next year, oh, by the way, you add some West Coast influence, like, it doesn't get any easier. And right now you have a nice little path in. But after this year, I don't know that you talk about Wisconsin being a top 2 or top 3 team. Now, if they take advantage of this, you can kind of strike while there's a window. Does that jumpstart recruiting? Do people in the transfer portal start to view Wisconsin differently? Do they get some momentum that they can roll into next year and maybe be in a different spot than we're viewing them right now in the Big Ten Conference? That remains to be seen. But I'm really, really fascinated by Wisconsin, just purely from the get in the door factor. Like, if they can just get in the door in Indy and line it up with a Michigan or an Ohio State, and it'd be the second time they play Ohio State for the record, I think that would be a very, very interesting football game. And I would not just look past that Big Ten West opponent if Ohio State or Michigan, or heck, even Penn State for that matter, just because of Luke Fickell being the head coach there. I like Penn State. I'm not buying them to be a Big Ten champion in 2023. They have the makings for sure. I'm gonna be a little bit more wait and see on Drew Allard. Tons of ability, but I think we're given the coronation for this poor kid before he's even stepped foot on a football field as the guy at Penn State. So tons of ability. He'll be great. But I'm actually a little bit higher on Penn State for the year after this year as opposed to this year.
Penn State is fascinating to me because I'll admit it, like, I'm an LSU guy and I've got a little bit of an ego and I'm a little bit conceited, and I look down my nose at some of the programs in college football and say, well, you'll never get to where I am. But there are some haves that haven't quite figured it out. And to me, James Fralin keeps bumping his head on the ceiling at Penn State. When you can break through that thing, I think, in Happy Valley, and for whatever reason they have not, why and how close are they to winning the Big Ten, to being a legitimate national championship contender?
it's so interesting because he's actually, I think, referred to a couple of times just the structures in place from an administration standpoint, whether that's referring to resources or not. But it feels like for the first time in a long time, based on what he said, there's a little bit more alignment there between himself and the powers that be at Penn State. And that, to me, if I'm the rest of the Big Ten, would make me nervous. Because like you were saying, if you're talking about blue bloods in college football, I don't know what tier you'd put Penn State, but they're definitely in that blue blood conversation. But like you said, they're behind Ohio State, they're behind Michigan. It feels like every year since 2016 when they last won the Big Ten title. So I think it really is a matter of being aligned and having the firepower of the state of Pennsylvania and having the firepower of the administration and the brand of Penn State totally maximized, like they do at LSU. I mean, that's a great example. Brian Kelly at Notre Dame, he's like, I can't do my very best given the tools we're working with here. And I know Notre Dame's not Penn State. There's different obstacles, obviously, but I think the same logic applies. For Penn State to be a national champion, they have to be 100% aligned, and they have to be able to maximize everything that the Penn State brand offers.
Let's go out west. Southern Cal is a given offensively. Lincoln Riley, with a Heisman Trophy-level quarterback, has proven it over almost a decade. They're going to score a ton of points. However, Alex Grinch and that defense, whether it's in Norman or L.A., haven't been able to do enough to get stops to win games. Does that change this year?
I think it does. I actually have USC in my college football playoff. I know you said we're doing predictions here at some point in time in the future, but I'm drinking the USC Kool-Aid. I mean, and the thing here, too, for this year, if it doesn't work this year, you no longer point the finger at the personnel. And maybe there are some people that have already been pointing both fingers at Alex Grinch. Maybe they're pointing other fingers that aren't the index finger at Alex Grinch based on what he hasn't done at USC this past season. That's neither here nor there. But I just think when you look at what they got through the portal, like talking to people close to USC, they're like, man, it looks so different. It looks so different on the defensive line. Like, we haven't had guys that look like Bear Alexander here. We haven't had guys that look like Anthony Lucas and Jack Sullivan, the transfer from Purdue. Like, they just have a different specimen on the defensive line and on the defensive side of the ball to where that's not my question. Do they have the guys? It's like, okay, are we aligned for success? Are we doing the right things defensively from a structure standpoint, from a strategy standpoint, to get the most out of this ability? So, I mean, if it doesn't work this year, you're looking at Alex Grinch saying, hey, man, I don't know what the problem is. If the students continue to fail the test and we're being told these are good students, I think at some point you got to blame the teacher.
I would totally agree with that. Chatting with JD PicKell of On3 Sports, host of The Hard Count over on YouTube. In the Big 12 last year for Texas and Oklahoma, I think everybody kind of understands what the situation is with Texas, but Oklahoma fell off a cliff last year in year one of Brett Venables. Are they going to fix it?
Yeah, Oklahoma's so fascinating because you look at the record and you see, okay, 6-7, not great. Is Brent Venables in over his head here? What's going on? It's a little bit of woulda, shoulda, coulda, so I don't mean to make excuses for the Sooners here, but you look at the rest of their games they played in 2022 outside of the TCU game and the Oklahoma game where they were a bit dinged up without their starting quarterback for most of those. Like, they had 5 losses all by 1 score. And so the question, I suppose, at this point is, okay, well, is that a bounce the ball thing where 5 different times you're on the wrong side of that? Or is that an issue internally where, hey, we just got a problem finishing. We got to figure this out. We got to revamp our approach. We got to revamp the way we do things to be able to win those close games. Similar to what I was talking about with USC, I really like what they did with the portal. I mean, they went and got a receiver from Michigan, Andrew Anthony, that they think is going to be their deep threat. They got a bunch of talented freshmen on the defensive side of the football. They're going to play to some capacity for them this year. So I think from a roster talent perspective, you probably put Oklahoma at least second place in the Big 12 behind a school like Texas. So I think they're going to be able to roll the ball out there and probably be favored in the majority of games they play in. Like, looking at the schedule, they don't have necessarily a murderer's row of teams they got to go through. BYU at the end of the year will be fascinating. I actually think Oklahoma's a team that kind of figures it out in year 2 with an experienced quarterback under Brent Venables, and I think they find themselves back in Jerry World playing for the Big 12 title.
Love it, JD. We'll talk again next week.
Hunt, appreciate you, brother. Have a great one. 10 days.
That's it. JD PicKell, host of The Hard Count on 3 Sports. Check out the YouTube channel. Subscribe to it. Get all his video content right there. Does an awesome job for the folks over at On 3. It's a What If Wednesday. That's next. Hunt Palmer Show.
Hunt Palmer on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Football season's quickly approaching, and FanDuel's giving you the chance to win all season long. Right now, when you bet on a Super Bowl winner, you can get bonus bets every time they win in the regular season. Just pick any team to win the Super Bowl, and you'll get bonus bets for every victory. You can use your bonus bets on spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/1045ESPN and start earning bonus bets with America's #1 sportsbook. That's FanDuel.com/1045ESPN. Must be 21 and present in Louisiana. First online real money wager only. $10 deposit required. Refund issues now. Eligible bonus bet that expires in 7 days. Max bonus $50 unless specified otherwise. Restrictions apply. See full terms at FanDuel.com/sportsbook. If you're somebody who has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-877-770-STOP.
Our listeners fire off their opinions on the jimsfirearms.net hotline at 499-1045. Keep listening for your next chance to shoot us your thoughts with the jimsfirearms.net hotline on 1045 ESPN Baton Rouge.
When it comes to ending cancer, we push forward, always working together for you. That's why our cancer experts at Ochsner have clinically integrated with MD Anderson Cancer Center. This means advanced cancer care, including access to life-saving clinical trials and integrating care to treat the whole you. Introducing Ochsner MD Anderson Cancer Center. Long live you.
Make this summer your backyard party year with Chris's Specialty Foods. Wings, burgers, brisket, steak, and boudin, plus great Cajun side dishes. We do all the prep, and you enjoy laughing with friends and family. Chris's Specialty Foods, Millerville, New Orleans, Prairieville, and Frisco.
Everybody loves Chris's authentic Cajun meat.
I've been doing business with Luba for 25 years. They're dependable, trustworthy. It's just the attention to detail with our clients.
Our folks have years and years of experience. They're highly trained professionals. But many companies have that asset. What I'd like to think makes Luba a bit different is that we use those talents in a way that truly is dedicated to serving the needs of the folks who depend on us.
Dylan Cruz here to tell you about Six Rings Baseball and Softball Camp. If you live on the North Shore and play ball, go to Six Rings Camps with former LSU assistant coach Dan Canaveri. His knowledge is second to none, and your child will improve and have fun doing it. Camps were held at Coquille Park and Six Rings Academy in Covington with 4 sessions over the summer. Full day and morning only sessions are available from ages 7 to 13. Go to sixringsbaseball.com or call 985-206-9096. Learn the game to love the game.
When is a taco more than just a taco? When it's Government Taco. Voted best tacos 3 years in a row by 225 Magazine, Government Taco puts the most delicious spin on tacos the capital area has ever seen. With creative combinations like the Magna Carrot, the Filibuster, or the Steak of the Union. Plus perfect tortilla chips paired with the best salsa and queso you've ever had. And happy hour every day from 3 to 6 p.m. and all day on Thursday. Government Taco, 5621 Government Street.
Gulf Coast Office Products is a nationally recognized Savin office equipment dealer based right here in Louisiana. Over 100 employees strong, Gulf Coast has the boots on the ground to support all vertical markets, from education, engineering, legal, and finance. With the latest in office technology, from desktop to production segment units, Gulf Coast and Savin have the perfect fit for you. Call 225-756-2644. That's 756.
On Thursdays, OTB will continue to bring you the latest from Saints and Tigers camp. The Hoodats get ready to take on the Chargers. Plus, a brand new edition of Munchies with Chef Michael Johnson. Off the bench, 7 to 10 a.m., 104.5 ESPN.
You're listening to Hunt Palmer on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Always appreciate JD PicKell. It was a good trip around the entire country. I don't do a ton of that because I'm knee-deep in the SEC, shoulder-deep in LSU over here, but JD does a great job covering things nationally, so I just kind of wanted his thoughts on some pieces here or there. I was surprised to hear him say he only thinks there's 4 teams that can win their division. That surprised me. I figured he would sneak one more in there. It's just kind of being a little inclusive. Throw the Aggies a bone. Throw Kiffin a bone there. Beamer's got something. But inevitably, it generally works out to be one of the top 6 teams. And if you feel like Florida and Auburn are not there, then you're left with 4. That's what we've got entering this season, it feels like. All right, it's What If Wednesday.
Time, space, reality. It's more than a linear path. Where a single choice can branch out into infinite realities. Follow me and ponder the question, what if?
All right, first one here. What if you could pick any team for Hard Knocks this year?
Interesting. I'm going to disqualify the Saints and Bengals. I would personally like those two for different reasons. One, I just like seeing Joe and Jamar and pulling for the Bengals and would like to see that. And the Saints, that would just peel back the curtain even further on us covering a camp that I personally can't be at because we're doing a show on their practice and all that kind of stuff. So those two for sure, but we'll go beyond that. I would like to see the Broncos with Sean P. I think that would be interesting. Russell's a little cringy, might be a little tough to watch, but I could get on board with that. And then a wild card for me, probably the Dolphins, because McDaniel is so weird. So I would like to hear him kind of away from the microphone and kind of see what it's like actually in practice and in meeting rooms and that kind of stuff. So I think if you made me pick, I'd probably go Miami.
What if Jaden Daniels had left for the NFL? Would LSU still be would LSU still be looked at in the same light as a top 5 team going into this season?
Not as confidently, I don't think. I mean, bringing your quarterback back is a massive piece to this preseason puzzle. Quarterbacks coming back, and used to be bowl performances. I think we've scrapped that because they're total waste of time at this point. But returning quarterbacks mean a lot. And I realize Georgia's still getting a ton of pub, but they're coming off 2 national championships and they're recruiting incredibly well. So that speaks for itself. But you look at some of the other teams that are toward the top of the polls, and you're going to see some favoritism towards returning quarterbacks. I do think that what America saw of Garrett Nussmeier against Georgia, they kind of liked. It was fun. It was deep shots. It was recklessness. It was, accenting LSU's playmakers on the outside. But Daniels is a proven commodity, not an exciting possibility. So I think that LSU would probably be bumped down a couple spots if he wasn't there, and probably rightfully so. As I said yesterday, that's a guy that you want to have taking snaps.
What if Texas and Oklahoma had gone to the Pac-10 10 years ago?
I think it stays together. I think there's a way to market UCLA, USC, Washington, Oregon, Oklahoma, and Texas. That's enough cachet, even in a part of the country that isn't obsessed with college athletics, to put together a reasonable TV package. Whether it's Larry Scott or the new guy that let it all fall apart, like somebody could market that. And once you don't have them and then you take UCLA and USC out, that's when you get to the point where you go to Apple and they're offering you $20 million a year. Like that's not doable, and that's not sustainable, and that's not going to keep a conference together. But I think if you kept the power brokers together out west and added Texas and Oklahoma, you could sell that to television, even with the SEC and the Big Ten cashing in mega dollars. So I think that was the first straw that wasn't necessarily already in there, but it wasn't added. And then the last straw was UCLA and USC pulling the plug in. That was all she wrote.
What if Eli didn't trip over the center and Ole Miss won the West?
Whew. Doesn't that rewrite history a little bit, huh? Because LSU does not win the national championship if Eli doesn't fall down and they go down and score. There's no guarantee of that. Against that defense, I would suggest it would be unlikely they would go down and score. But if Ole Miss wins the West, I guess you feel a little bit differently about them. Right now, you look at them and you just laugh like you've never been to Atlanta. Now, they were that trip and fall away, and then the crazy Alex Collins play, rest his soul after passing away this week. But, like, those are their 2 best shots, and they didn't get it done. Arkansas has been. Mississippi State went. But Ole Miss has never gone. I feel like that gets a little bit of a monkey off your back. But alas, he did trip, and we won the national championship. So I won't spend too much time thinking about that.
What if Michael Ford didn't step out of bounds and 9-6 became 12-6? Would that have convinced the pollsters to deny Bama the rematch?
No, I don't think so. I was probably 20 feet from Michael Ford when he stepped out of bounds. I was down on the field for overtime of that game. But that still would have been as closely contested a game as you could play. It would have literally gone into overtime, come down to one play, and LSU would have won. I don't think that Bama got the benefit of the doubt because they didn't allow a touchdown. I think they got the benefit of the doubt because Oklahoma State lost to Iowa State, who stunk, and Alabama lost to LSU, who at that point was in the conversation for one of the best college football seasons ever. Bama also had a win over Arkansas, who was in the top 5. You're looking at, Oklahoma State didn't necessarily have that. Texas wasn't great. Oklahoma they ran Oklahoma off the field in that game, and that wasn't going to happen. Everybody knew the best two teams were LSU and Alabama, and the pollsters were going to do everything they could to vote LSU and Alabama back into that game. LSU was going to have to beat Bama by 2 scores in that game on the road to eliminate them. And by the same token, LSU would have been afforded the same chance if their only loss was on the road to Alabama, and Bama would have gone and whitewashed Georgia in the SEC championship game. They were the best two teams, and Mike Gundy has the ability now to go up to the podium and say whatever he wants because we can't go back in time and prove him to be a fool. But every time he gets in front of the microphone and talks about how that team would have gone up there and beaten LSU or Alabama, he looks dumber. So that was always going to happen again, and in my personal opinion, it was going to go that way in the Superdome either way. I think if LSU plays Alabama in the Superdome 10 times, they probably only win 2 or 3. Bama had a better offense that year that was more capable with more dimensions, and LSU was great that year, one of the best probably 3 teams in the history of the school. But that Bama defense was a nightmare matchup for a run-heavy LSU offense. It was just going to be difficult to move those guys for 4 quarters. That LSU offensive line did not have NFL players on it. Alabama's defensive front had all NFL players on it. So I went off on a tangent there when the question was pretty simple. But no, LSU was destined to play Alabama the second that Oklahoma State lost to Iowa State on that Friday night.
All right, last one here. What if the PMAC doesn't get redone in the next 2 years and the Lady Tigers win another title in that time frame? How do you handle the wrath of Mulkey?
She may go out there with a hammer and some 2x4s and start working on it herself. She said after they won it this year, she was like, well, I was going to keep my mouth shut, but now I've won a national title, I don't have to. And she wants a new PMAC or new facilities, either a total gut and redo the whole thing, or a new one totally. But if she wins another one and they don't do anything, you'll hear about it. We know one thing about Kim. She's not afraid to speak her mind and what she thinks. And we know another thing about her. She's going to win a lot of basketball games, and she's going to win another national title this year, in my opinion, as well. They lost 2 games last year, won the national championship, and they're going to be better this year. So, I'm curious to see what the powers that be at LSU decide to do with the basketball facility. There seem to be a number of options that have been proposed. I don't know how serious any of them are, whether it's rebuilding a new PMAC where the track is and moving track out by the river, whether it's building a new one out by the river, whether it's building a new one where the Cow Palace is, maybe playing the River Center for a year. I don't know what they're going to do, and don't pretend to be in the middle of those conversations, but I'm curious to see what the resolution is, because I don't think they're going to be able to stand pat. I think that the folks over there in basketball land want new stuff, and they're probably going to get it at some point. All right, that's it for What If Wednesday. When we come back, speaking of basketball, the non-conference schedule is out. I've got some thoughts on it as a whole and what's coming to the PMAC. That's next.
Hunt Palmer on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
It's storm season. Let Boudreaux's Electric help you out. Not just hurricanes that knock our power out. Our afternoon thunderstorms knock power out at times. You can prevent that with a Generac generator. And Boudreaux's Electric is a premier Generac dealer, which means they're in the top 3% nationwide. Neil and Melissa Boudreaux have been owning and operating Boudreaux's Electric for 40 years. And they've got all the bells and whistles and all the high technology stuff, but they operate like a small business because that's what they feel they are. And they've been servicing our community for 4 decades. Part of what they can do for you at Boudreaux's Electric, which is so great with your Generac generator, is monitor it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. If it fails during a hurricane, they can go out there and fix it if it's safe. if it fails just in the course of a day because your kids are out there playing around and somebody hits it with a bat on accident, they'll know about it because they're monitoring it, and they can send a tech out there to make sure that your generator is up and running. If you're home and the power goes out, you want the power to be restored by that generator. Even if you leave for a hurricane, you want your refrigerator and freezer running so that when you get back, you don't have a disgusting fridge and freezer. You have to throw everything out. You want that power running. Boudreaux's Electric can help you with that. Same phone over the head for 40 years. Give them a call. It's 985-397-1562. 985-397-1562. Boudreaux's Electric.
In times of need, get a full list of phone numbers, websites, and other important emergency information on the Demco Stormwatch page at 1045ESPN.com.
Bayou Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram has $12,000 off MSRP on new 23 Ram 1500 trucks, all with Bayou's 1 million mile warranty. The crew at Bayou Automotive is going to do right by you.
The world's leaders in obesity research, obesity medicine, and obesity science are right here.
We're doing something that no one's ever done or trying to answer a question that no one's ever asked before.
Pennington is a real jewel when it comes to research.
We are finding the solutions to the world's worst chronic disease, which is obesity. Louisiana needs Pennington Biomedical.
Bayou Ford has $8,000 off MSRP, plus 1.9% financing on new 23 Ford F-150 XLT trucks, along with Bayou Ford's 1 million mile warranty. The crew at Bayou Ford is going to do right by you.
The best kept secret in town is out. Discover Tallulah at the Renaissance Hotel on Bluebonnet.
When is a taco more than just a taco? When it's Government Taco. Voted best tacos 3 years in a row by 225 Magazine, Government Taco puts the most delicious spin on tacos the capital area has ever seen. With creative combinations like the Magna Carrot, the Filibuster, or the Steak of the Union. Plus perfect tortilla chips paired with the best salsa and queso you've ever had. And happy hour every day from 3 to 6 p.m. and all day on Thursday. Government Taco, 5621 Government Street.
I've been doing business with Luba for 25 years. They're dependable, trustworthy. It's just the attention to detail with our clients.
Our folks have years and years of experience. They're highly trained professionals, but many companies have that asset. What I'd like to think makes Luba a bit different is that we use those talents in a way that truly is dedicated to serving the needs of the folks who depend on us.
Dylan Cruz here to tell you about Six Rings Baseball and Softball Camp. If you live on the North Shore and play ball, go to Six Rings Camps with former LSU assistant coach Dan Canaveri. His knowledge is second to none, and your child will improve and have fun doing it. Camps are held at Coquille Park and Six Rings Academy in Covington with 4 sessions over the summer. Full day and morning only sessions are available from ages 7 to 13. Go to sixringsbaseball.com or call 985-206-9096. Learn the game to love the game.
Gulf Coast Bank and Trust is giving our customers the power to bank anywhere, anytime during this challenging event. And we're right there with you. Our mobile banking app.
Charles Hannegriff joined me and Jimmy out for the next edition of Live at Lunch from Louis Cafe just outside the gates of LSU. Dwayne Colucci's with us, Matt Humans is with us, and Jacques Doucet from WAFB. Live at Lunch, 11 a.m. weekdays on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
This is Hunt Palmer on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
LSU basketball's non-conference schedule has been finalized for this coming basketball season. Non-conference would be in the fall, so for this coming fall. And there are some headliners on this non-conference schedule, and that's a very, very good thing. I love the fact that they're going to play Dayton. They've got a really good chance in Charleston to play St. John's as well. They're going to play Syracuse in the ACC-SEC Challenge in November. They're going to play Texas over in Houston. Like, that's very, very good. And Kansas State is coming to the PMAC. So you look at Dayton, St. John's, Syracuse, Kansas State, and Texas as 5-year non-conference games. That is a very strong non-conference schedule. Now, again, Dayton's in Charleston. St. John's will be in Charleston. Syracuse is on the road as part of the SEC ACC, so you'll be up in upstate New York. Texas is over in Houston. So none of those games are in the PMAC, but they're on the schedule, which is very good. And Kansas State coming to the PMAC is great. Kansas State, under Coach Jerome Tang, who's full of energy. They got him from Baylor. He's kind of put a shot of life into that program. They made the Elite Eight last year. They'll be coming to the PMAC. That's really, really good on December the 9th. And Syracuse is no longer under Jim Boeheim, of course. Adrian Autry is the head coach there. And it'll be his first season as the Orange's head coach. But that's very, very good. However, on the back end of it, it's not my favorite. You've got 2 SWAC schools on the schedule. Mississippi Valley State and Alabama State are on the schedule. And you're going deep into the Southland here with Nicholls State, Southeastern, Lamar, and Northwestern State, 4 Southland schools. So generally speaking, that's not awesome for your net. We know the way that things were done here. You were going to look at a lot of Belmonts. You were going to look at a lot of UT Martins. You were going to look at a lot of Stephen F. Austin. Those type of teams that you really thought, even though were not big-name teams, even though you knew that Lipscomb, that LSU was going to very likely beat, they were going to finish the regular season with like 24, 25 wins. And that's why LSU routinely had a very, very positive outlook in the net. Now, LSU didn't play a lot of Syracuse, Houston, Kansas State in the non-conference. And that was probably by design as well. There was some, and you know, you did a little bit of that, but this is kind of top heavy and bottom heavy that I guess may even out. I'm just a little bit leery of putting what's probably like 5 quad 4s on the resume. I mean, quad 4s are not good. They hurt the net. You certainly can't lose them. Now, I don't anticipate LSU's going to lose to Northwestern State, but I don't anticipate they'll lose to Mississippi Valley State. But it's just a little bit too prevalent there for my liking. I'd rather play somebody that you think is very more some kind of South Alabama or South Florida or somebody like that. You know, I don't know all the ins and outs, but it's a little bit light in terms of some of the non-conference teams that are coming to home. And the home non-conference schedule is not great. It's Mississippi Valley State, it's Nicholls, it's North Florida, it's Southeastern Louisiana, it's Kansas State, which is great, Alabama State, Lamar, and Northwestern State. So that's not a ton of early season action. This town is very likely to be just eaten up with football throughout that time frame anyway. So we know how that goes. But I am very excited to watch this basketball team play Dayton, St. John's, Syracuse, Kansas State, and Texas all before Christmas. That's very cool in my opinion, and hopefully that continues. The SEC ACC Challenge is very cool to me. I think it's very cool that LSU is going to play Syracuse in the Carrier Dome. I got my eyes set on playing North Carolina or Duke once upon a time, and LSU is going to have to win a lot of basketball games to get to that point where they're going to get that nod over the Alabamas, over the Auburns, over the Tennessees that are cooking right now. We know Kentucky's going to be headed there pretty quickly, most years, and Arkansas is going to get some of those bids at this point right now, and LSU's not there yet. But Syracuse kind of fell off a little bit, so LSU will get that opportunity. There's some real chances for some high-profile matchups with the ACC. You got Buddy Hield out of the Big 12, but more often than not, you were playing Texas Tech or TCU. Never got a swing at Kansas. So I'm optimistic, and I think this is going to be a fun non-conference schedule. I worry a little bit if LSU finds a way to play itself onto the bubble that you're looking back at that non-conference going, man, Nicholls, Mississippi Valley State, Lamar, Northwestern, Southeastern, Alabama State. Could we have beefed that up somewhere? I don't know. I don't know how those phone calls went, but I can look at it now and go, I see a lot of positive in that, and I see a little bit of negative as well. We'll just have to see how things shake out when basketball season cranks up. But I know it's all football all the time around here. We'll talk Saints in 20 minutes about the 53 and kind of how that looks to be shaken out right now. Still some more sound from LSU, Deuce Chestnut. We'll hear from a little bit later. When we come back, the SEC is playing some real high-profile non-conference games. It's not just LSU and Florida State. I'll give you my thoughts on some of those games when we come back after SportsCenter on the Hunt Palmer Show.
Officially, it's a fridge full of beer. Unofficially, it's free AC. Coors Light, the official beer of everything unofficial.
Bayou Ford has $8,000 off MSRP, plus 1.9% financing on new 23 Ford F-150 XLT trucks, along with Bayou Ford's 1 million mile warranty. The crew at Bayou Ford is going to do right by you.
Follow us on Twitter at 1045ESPN to cast your vote in the Citizens Bank and Trust Poll of the Day. Vote daily inside Off the Bench, live at lunch, on Palmer. And after further review, Citizens Bank and Trust brings you the Poll of the Day via Twitter at 1045ESPN.
Hi, I'm Brandon Landry, founder and CEO of Walker.
Hi, my name is Dr. Craig Green.
This is Ryan Terrio with HUDCoRoofing.com.
Hey, it's Matt Moscona. No matter how big your commercial roofing job, HUDCO can help.
My patients come to me because they trust that I can get the job done at a high level. Ryan Terrio and Richard Tilley have the same level of trust when it comes to roofing.
If you have a roofing issue, call HUDCO Roofing.
Give us a call, 364-1007, and we'll come to your house and give you a free inspection.
Hey, what's up, y'all? It's that time again. It's heating up. Your boat's getting ready to come out and spend all summer on the water. It's time to take your boat to the next level with front-to-back boat service, where if you want an incredible custom speaker install, it's going to blow people away in the water, that's there for you. You want an HD sonar where you can see the fish under the water before you cast, beat all your friends, that's there for you at front-to-back boat service. So don't put it off. We got the parts in right now. Get them now before they go back on back order. Front-to-back boat service.
The importance of doing this fortified program and offering it to people down here is, number one, the only real chance you're going to get to do this is when you put on a new roof or build new. And through companies like HUDCO, who's kind of leading the way in this thing, it's going to offer the customers a huge advantage in the insurance market and the price of their insurance.
You know, we're not looking to make a fortune off fortifying. We're trying to give you a better product than our competitor at the moment. I'm trying to do something that he can. I'm trying to give you something better. So a lot of these insurance jobs, you're getting a re-roof, you're only paying your deductible. Let's sit down and talk about the fortified and let's see what it does to your insurance premium. You're getting a steal.
Yeah.
You're getting a brand new roof and a fortified certificate for your deductible, essentially. And I think we're rocking and rolling.
Dylan Cruz here to tell you about Six Rings Baseball and Softball Camp. If you live on the North Shore and play ball, go to Six Rings Camps with former LSU assistant coach Dan Canaveri. His knowledge is second to none, and your child will improve and have fun doing it. Camps were held at Coquille Park and Six Rings Academy in Covington with 4 sessions over the summer. Full day and morning only sessions are available from ages 7 to 13. Go to sixringsbaseball.com or call 985-206-9096. Learn the game to love the game.
Gulf Coast Office Products is a nationally recognized Savin office equipment dealer based right here in Louisiana. Over 100 employees strong, Gulf Coast has the boots on the ground to support all vertical markets, from education, engineering, legal, and finance. With the latest in office technology, from desktop to production segment units, Gulf Coast and Savin have the perfect fit for you. Call 225-756-2644. That's 756-2644 for Gulf Coast Office Products.
Bayou Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram has $12,000 off MSRP on new 23 Ram 1500 trucks, all with Bayou's 1 million mile warranty. The crew at Bayou Automotive is going to do right by you.
This is SportsCenter.
I'm Christine Lisi. 7-on-7 drills started out well enough for the Jets. Quarterback Aaron Rodgers hit receiver Garrett Wilson deep, much to the delight of the crowd. Things quickly went downhill. Buccaneers' defensive line dominated the Jets' offensive line. Rodgers sacked multiple times, got frustrated. New York's O-line still a major concern for a team with Super Bowl aspirations. MMQB senior NFL reporter Albert Breer.
They've got pieces up front, and Joe Douglas and Robert Saleh have invested
in trying to put together, a top shelf offensive line. The problem is it hasn't come together yet, and there's a lot of projection there.
Albert Breer on ESPN Radio Mornings. Buccaneers receiver Russell Gage suffered a season-ending knee injury at today's joint practice, reports ESPN's Jeremy Fowler. Ravens Pro Bowl cornerback Marlon Humphrey will undergo surgery on a lingering foot injury, a big hit to the thinnest position on Baltimore's roster. No timeline yet for his return. Raiders receiver Devontae Adams returning from a minor lower leg injury for today's joint practice with the Rams. Venus Williams given a wild card to play in her 24th U.S. Open later this month.
How would you love a chance to save some money on car insurance? Geico can help. Switch today and see all the ways you could save with great rates and discounts. It's easy. Simply go to geico.com to get a rate quote and get started seeing how much you could save.
Now, Hunt Palmer on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Holding down the middle of the day. Live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studios. This is Hunt Palmer.
Hour number 2, Wednesday edition Hunt Palmer Show, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Half the work week in the rear view mirror. Glad you are hanging out with us. Got Casey Gaines and Jacob Beck back there on the ones and twos. Wanted to spend a little bit of time today talking about some of the other non-conference matchups in the SEC outside of LSU and Florida State. We know that LSU and Florida State has massive implications for both programs. Both consider themselves conference championship threats. Because of that, you consider yourself playoff contenders, and when you get there, you're a threat to win a national championship. That doesn't happen a lot in non-conference matchups, and LSU and Florida State see themselves that way in the middle of August. These games that I'm going to point out don't necessarily have that much cachet to them, perhaps with the exception of Alabama and Texas, but they're big football games for these programs and games that we'll probably be paying attention to. Now, you know me. I hate everyone in the SEC, and I hope that they lose every single one of these games that I rattle off. I've got to grit and bear it when I pull for SEC teams in the non-conference in basketball and baseball so that LSU gets preferential treatment or proper treatment when the selection time comes. That doesn't necessarily hold as much water in a 4-team college football playoff. Maybe when we get to 12, I'll have to change my tune. But as of now, I'm pulling against the league in all these games. So we'll start with week 1. And Florida makes a very interesting trip to Salt Lake to play the Utes. We know that this game was played to open 2022, and Florida won that game 29-26. It was the beginning of the Napier era. We kind of thought they had something in Anthony Richardson, and that was a really nice win for them. And it still was a really nice win when the dust settled because Utah came back and won the Pac-12. But that Florida team's going to look different this year. Clearly with no Richardson, they bring in Graham Mertz, and not a lot of people very high on Florida at this point in the calendar. But Cam Rising is back for Utah. He completed 65% of his throws last year for about 2,500 yards. He threw 20 touchdowns, only 5 picks. And he's one of 7 starters that Utah has back on the offensive line. On the offense. Utah's got 9 starters back on defense, and their defense was good. So it feels like the nucleus is there for a strong Utah team. You know they're going to be big, and you know they're going to be old. They're probably going to have a lot of 23 and 24-year-old guys on that team. What interests me as I was digging into Utah, and I looked into some stuff on Phil Steele. Phil Steele has got Utah with the number 1 offensive line and number 1 defensive line in the Pac-12. When you couple all this, Utah returning a lot on offense, including its quarterback, returning a lot on defense, being very physical and strong up front, and the fact that Florida's just not really gotten out of neutral just yet, there's a reason Utah's a 7.5-point favorite in this game. Utah should win this game, and I'll be pulling for them. That's week 1. You've also got North Carolina and South Carolina in week 1. They'll play that game in Charlotte. And you know by now that North Carolina's got Drake May. They've also got 8 other starters back on offense. So 9 returning offensive players for North Carolina and one of the best quarterbacks in the country. Through 10 games last year, North Carolina was averaging 40 points per game. And I knew that Drake May was really good. I did not know that he was such a running threat. He ran, if you take the sack yardage out from last year, he ran for 937 yards. That led North Carolina. He's really good. Now, North Carolina's defense was terrible last year. They allowed 31 points per game. Listen to some of the point totals that North Carolina gave up last year. Appalachian State, you'll remember that game. It was a shootout. It was a crazy game right before they beat A&M. They scored 61 on North Carolina. 61. Now, Carolina found a way to score 63. But, geez Louise, to give up 61 points to Appy State. They also gave up 45 to Notre Dame. They gave up 35 to Duke. They gave up 34 to Sam Hartman and Wake. Now, they've got 8 starters back on defense, but the defense stunk. So if I look at North Carolina, I'm looking at a team that's got a really good quarterback, a ton of firepower on offense back, and a bad defense. South Carolina played great to end the season last year offensively. They got Spencer Rattler. That's going to be a shootout. It should be a really fun game between North Carolina and South Carolina in Charlotte. So that one is going to be interesting. I don't care as much about South Carolina. They can win, they can lose, whatever. They're not really on my radar. The next team is very much on my radar. And if you can't tell, I've already gotten my green and orange on. I'm working on my tan. I'm eating Cuban sandwiches. I'm all about the U. Because they're welcoming in Texas A&M in week 2. We know that A&M last year beat them 17-9. I did not remember, because I just don't pay that much attention to outside the SEC, especially teams that aren't towards the top of college football. I didn't know Miami was as bad as they were last year. I did not recall that in year 1 of Mario Cristobal. They were 5-7 last year. That's the worst they've been in 45 years. The worst record Miami football has had in 45 years was last year. So year 2 is pretty big for Mario Cristobal. I mean, some of these losses last year were just terrible. 45-31 to Middle Tennessee State. He lost by 2 scores to Middle Tennessee State. Got blown out by Duke, 45-21. Were totally non-competitive with Florida State. 45-3 was the final in that game. Miami just non-competitive with their in-state rival. Clemson beat them 40-10. Pitt, to close out the season, beat them 42-16. And these losses are not just one side of the football letting you down. No. 45-3 against Florida State is a no-show. 40-10 against Clemson, that's bad offense and bad defense. 42-16 against Pitt is bad offense and bad defense. You cannot allow Middle Tennessee to score 45 points. Awful. So it's year 2 for Cristobal. Like, what does he have? He's got 19 starters back, including Tyler Van Dyke, who 2 years ago had a really, really promising first year, and then he stunk last year. They brought in Josh Gaddis, who was the National Assistant of the Year for Michigan. Got him to the playoff for the first time. They hired him at Miami. He's fired. They brought in Houston's offensive coordinator. Figure there's some Holgerson influence there. Figure there's some air raid influence there. We'll see. But you look at A&M and Miami last year, both teams were terrible. And they've got to get on track in week 2. It's all about the U, baby. I'll be dancing. I'll be doing everything in my power to get Miami over the finish line there. I don't have a lot of confidence. A&M is a 6.5-point favorite in that one. Also, week 2, Texas at Alabama. I knew that Texas was mediocre last year. I did know that. But I went back and looked at what they did a little more closely. And you can paint a little more vivid picture when you dive deeper into what Texas did last year. They lost to Bama by 1. They should have won that game. Ewers goes down. You had the safety play in the end zone where Bryce Young gets rid of it. He was Houdini. There were late field goals. You lost the game by 1. You went to Texas Tech and lost by 3. That's a tight football game on the road. You lost it. You should beat Texas Tech. They lost by 3. They went to Oklahoma State and lost by 1 touchdown, lost by 7. TCU played for the championship. They lost to them by 7. Went to the Alamo Bowl, played Washington, lost by 7. Yeah, they were 8-5, but every loss they had was by a score. They should have won some of those games. Now, you lose Bijan Robinson, and that's tough, but the other 10 guys are back from that offense last year. 10 guys. And the question is, how good's Quinn Ewers? Like, is he the guy that was fearless and productive in the first half against Alabama? He's that guy all year. Like, they got a chance to be pretty good, and they can go to Tuscaloosa and may have a chance to outscore Alabama. But what do they have on defense? I found that 2 of the newcomers they've got on that defense are interesting to me. Anthony Hill, who's a 5-star from the state of Texas, was committed to A&M, was kind of the linchpin of their class. 11th hour, he decommits, goes to Texas. He's listed as a starter for him, as a 5-star. And then Jalen Catalon, who a lot of you will probably remember from his time at Arkansas. He was a starter at Arkansas for a couple years at safety, got hurt, he transferred, he's at Texas now. Maybe the defense gets a little bit better. I'm optimistic a little bit that Texas can go into Tuscaloosa and win. I wouldn't bet them. They won't be favored. But if this is Jalen Milroe's show in Tuscaloosa, I might like Quinn Ewers to go in there and score more points than him. We'll have to see. 2 more quickly here. We're looking at non-conference games for SEC teams this year. Week 3, Georgia Tech's at Ole Miss. The Rebs beat them 42-0 last year. I only bring this game up because I bet you, the listener who's driving around, is an LSU fan, pays attention to Ole Miss and the SEC, but doesn't really know what's going on at Georgia Tech. I bet you don't know who their starting quarterback is going to be this year. It made me laugh. Good old Haynes King, former Texas A&M Aggie who was not good, is calling the snaps for Georgia Tech this year. They were 5-7. They gave Brent Keys the job, but there's just no way that a Haynes King offense is going to keep up with Lane Kiffin. I'm taking Ole Miss to win that game. Speaking of quarterbacks, you may remember, Week 3, BYU is playing Arkansas in Fayetteville. Do you know who BYU's quarterback is this year? Keaton Slovis, former 5-star, former USC Trojan, former Pitt Panther, now a BYU Cougar. He had a bad year last year for Pitt. 58%, 10 touchdowns, and 9 picks. That won't get it done. But BYU's defense was their problem last year. Listen to these point totals they gave up. They were 30th in points per game allowed. They were 98th in the country. Sorry, they allowed 30 points per game. They were 97th in the country in points allowed. They were 98th in the country in yards allowed on the ground, and they were second to last in the country in sacks with only 15. Only Colorado had fewer sacks than BYU. So they got to figure something out on the defensive side, and I'm not so optimistic about Keaton Slovis. So I like the SEC in all of these games, quite frankly, to win. That's just generally the way we look at things, except Utah is probably the team that I would say should beat Florida. But week 1, we shall see. We'll get deeper into these games as they come up, but I just wanted to stand back before we get into the emotion and get biased from anything that we've actually seen. Like, what do these non-conference games look like? And to me, the SEC is the better squad, and the majority of them outside of Utah and Florida. All right, take a timeout. When we come back, let's go ahead and hear from we'll do some Saints talk when we come back. Saints talk next.
Hunt Palmer on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Ochsner Health and MD Anderson Cancer Center have partnered to create Ochsner MD Anderson Cancer Center in southeastern Louisiana. This collaboration is going to provide patients in our region with access to cancer treatments that are among the most advanced in the nation. The physicians at Ochsner MD Anderson Cancer Center have direct access to MD Anderson specialists and researchers. They're offering groundbreaking research, innovative therapies, and even access to select clinical trials available to eligible patients. Ochsner MD Anderson Cancer Center is going to offer expert care in 7 locations across New Orleans, St. Tammany, and Baton Rouge. And the great news is that Ochsner and MD Anderson are working together to certify additional sites in the future. Cancer affects all of us. The folks at Ochsner and MD Anderson are forming the Ochsner MD Anderson Cancer Center to make sure that that's not always the case. For more information on the Ochsner MD Anderson Cancer Center, go to ochsner.org.
Our listeners fire off their opinions on the jimsfirearms.net hotline at 499-1045. Keep listening for your next chance to shoot us your thoughts with the jimsfirearms.net hotline on 1045 ESPN Baton Rouge.
When is a taco more than just a taco? When it's Government Taco. Voted best tacos 3 years in a row by 225 Magazine, Government Taco puts the most delicious spin on tacos the capital area has ever seen. With creative combinations like the Magna Carrot, the Filibuster, or the Steak of the Union. Plus perfect tortilla chips paired with the best salsa and queso you've ever had. And happy hour every day from 3 to 6 p.m. and all day on Thursday. Government Taco, 5621 Government Street.
Follow us on Twitter at 1045ESPN to cast your vote in the Citizens Bank and Trust Poll of the Day. Vote daily inside Off the Bench, live at lunch, Hunt Palmer. And after further review, Citizens Bank and Trust brings you the Poll of the Day via Twitter at 1045ESPN.
Oh, hey, what's up? It's Big D and Bubba, 100.7 The Tiger Morning Show. We'd love for you to join us every weekday, 4 a.m. till 9 a.m.
Yeah, everything you want in a show. Country music. We got laughs. We got celebrity in-studio guests. We just need you.
Join us every weekday morning, 4 a.m. to 9 a.m., right where it all started.
That's right. Louisiana's country station, 100.7 The Tiger.
I've been doing business with Luba for 25 years. They're dependable, trustworthy. It's just the attention to detail with our clients.
Our folks have years and years of experience. They're highly trained professionals, but many companies have that asset. What I'd like to think makes Luba a bit different is that we use those talents in a way that truly is dedicated to serving the needs of the folks who depend on us.
Dylan Cruz here to tell you about Six Rings Baseball and Softball Camp. If you live on the North Shore and play ball, go to Six Rings Camps with former LSU assistant coach Dan Canaveri. His knowledge is second to none, and your child will improve and have fun doing it. Camps were held at Coquille Park and Six Rings Academy in Covington with 4 sessions over the summer. Full day and morning only sessions are available from ages 7 to 13. Go to sixringsbaseball.com or call 985-206-9096. Learn the game to love the game.
There it is, the extra mile, on the border of expected and extraordinary for those willing to go further, like vans customized for work or play, with safety and tech to keep you connected, supported by a 5-star sales, service, and finance team, and backed by the 1-star you know. So go the extra mile.
Matt Moscona inviting you to join us for Wednesday's Hump Day AFR, presented by Pluckers. Brian Kelly meets with reporters after practice. We'll let you hear what the head coach has to say, and we'll get you an update from Saints camp. Join us 3 to 6, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
You're listening to Hunt Palmer on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
You know, I mentioned over the last few days that, like, I'm the only person not complaining about the heat around here and how I am used to this because I've lived here my whole life and most of you have too. So it surprises me a little bit to hear everyone complaining about the heat this time of year when we should technically be fairly used to it. And I said that I played golf over the weekend and that I went to practice at LSU over the weekend and that I went running last couple of days. And I do want to say that when I played golf, I rode in a golf cart and drank beer. And when I ran like a mile and a half, 2 miles, and then went inside and walked a little bit. At practice, I can, drink some water, and I'm only out there for a bit in a T-shirt and shorts. I do feel bad for the football players, okay? I'm not going through 2-hour practices in helmets and pads. If that were the case, then I would comment more on the Heat. I give them full availability to complain about the Heat and to acknowledge that it is hot out there. So with that said, like, I think the Saints should be pretty ecstatic to be heading out to Los Angeles to do some practicing with the Chargers and then to play inside, because they've been dealing with the elements for a month now. So Dennis Allen met with the media last night, talked about that he's looking forward to the trip out to LA.
Obviously, they've got some really good players, really on both sides of the ball. They operate really well offensively. You know, we'll get a chance to see, you know, what they look like with a new offensive coordinator. So that'll be a little bit different for us. But yeah, they got a lot of really good players. It should be some good work. We're looking forward to getting on the road tomorrow and going and working against those guys.
I think most people you talk to in the NFL will say that the joint practices are more beneficial even in the preseason games. It's a lot more good on good. The coaches are more willing to formationally and play call-wise on both sides of the ball open things up because it's not really on tape. You're just practicing, and the other team's the only one that can see it. So there are just a lot of reasons why it's a little more beneficial than throwing the starters out there for half a quarter and then seeing what the guys at the end of the roster can do in the second half. Dennis Allen talked about the benefits of practicing against the Chargers for a couple of days.
Played the Chargers last year in the preseason, and you know, Brandon and I kind of communicated that, you know, we'd love to come back out there and work against those guys. I think it's been a good trip for us. It gives us an opportunity to kind of get out of the elements here, a little bit cooler weather, and get a chance to work against a good football team.
And I think the Chargers are going to be good. And I think this is a beneficial week for the New Orleans Saints. Now, what kind of work they're going to be doing? Well, Dennis Allen elaborated on that.
A lot of teamwork, a lot of situational, you know, third down, red zone, 2-minute, all those kinds of things. So a little bit of one-on-one. Probably not a ton different than what you've seen out here the last few weeks. Just people have an opportunity to do it against somebody else.
And that's the key, like doing it against somebody else. That's what I always hear from players when I used to, you know, interview guys during camp, and you'd be talking to, I'm sick of going against the same guy. Same guy, same moves. The offense is, you know, trying to run the same plays. There's an element of monotony, an element of repetition that just is draining. And to be able to go against somebody that, you know, is not on your team, that you're not going to go to battle on the same team as in practice, but a guy that you desperately want to beat, that's a breath of fresh air. And I think that these guys should embrace it. We're out there right now looking at LSU go through practice, and it's a lot of the same stuff. It's a lot of the same guys. And I'm not suggesting that Jamar Chase working against Derek Stingley in practice is not beneficial for both of those guys. It definitely is. There's just another element of getting the competitive juices flowing when you can pull somebody with a different color helmet on and go at it. And I think that's going to be very, very good for the Saints. The most important piece of information, I guess, from last night was that Dennis Allen kind of gave a bit of a practice and injury recap.
Good practice. Again, a lot of situational work today. Cesar Ruiz left practice with a shoulder injury. We'll get that evaluated. Somebody kind of banged up a little bit in the game, but I don't expect it to be anything significant, but, you know, we're going to take a look at it. And then Taysom kind of strained his oblique. Again, I don't think that's anything significant, but, you know, we may have to rest him for a day or two. We'll see.
Those don't sound significant. Ruiz sounds okay. Taysom sounds okay. And there was good news about Kendre Miller as well. That's not going to be a massive issue. Should only be a week or two, and he can come back. So as you look at the Saints right now, it looks pretty good. It was interesting. I was looking at the column that Jeff Duncan writes every single year, where he takes a poll of every single Saints media member, whether it's TV, subscription websites, newspapers, whatever the case may be, radio, and gets a season prediction from them. And he compiles them all into little blurbs, and you can read what everybody thinks about the Saints. And I would say 65% of the answers that he got mentioned injuries. And that's not unique to the Saints. Everyone in the NFL deals with injuries. But the Saints have been hit very, very hard the last 2 years. There are no two ways about that. everyone gets hit. The Saints have been hit very, very hard. And to this point in camp, they've done a pretty good job of managing that. There have been nicks. There have been guys that have missed a little bit of time. There have been some veteran days off, as you would expect. But to this point, they've done a good job of getting through camp. Now, this is going to be a big obstacle here that you just got to go through. But you're going to do 2 days of full pad, full contact. Let's roll with the Chargers and then go play them. That's 3 straight days. A lot of full speed stuff. A lot of 11 on 11. And I realize probably your odds are a little bit better if you've got 11 of your guys facing 11 of your guys in a one-team only practice. But the intensity level is going to be ratcheted up a little bit when they play the Chargers. So hopefully the Saints are able to stay relatively healthy. Again, you may miss Ruiz for a couple days. You may miss Taysom Hill for a couple days. Miller's going to miss a little bit of time. And there's some other guys that have been in and out of the lineup here and there. But it feels like the Saints have done a good job of avoiding any sort of disaster on the injury front to this point. So that's our Saints discussion on this Wednesday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show. When we come back, we've got sound from Brian Kelly. I also want to hear from Deuce Chestnut, who had something very, very interesting to say that I did not realize until yesterday when he said it. That's next.
Hunt Palmer on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
One Bath and Closets. OneBathAndClosets.com is the website. 10% off if you bundle a shower or full bathroom renovation with a closet renovation. 10% off for listeners to the Hunt Palmer Show from the folks over at One Bath and Closets. David Duvall and his team are so awesome. I love talking to them about the things that they can do in bathrooms and closets. One of the things we were talking about that I've mentioned a few times on the show is that it's not always your own bathroom that you're concerned with. Maybe you've got an aging loved one who has some trouble getting around but doesn't want to move. Well, One Bath and Closets can make their bathroom safer and more convenient. How about a walk-in tub? Instead of having to worry about getting in and out of the tub and slipping and all that, walk-in tub makes things easier and safer for a loved one. Maybe there are some handrails that need to be installed with the tub or the shower somewhere else in the bathroom. David Duvall and his team do that kind of stuff all the time. If you've got an aging loved one who may need to look into something like that, give One Bath and Closets a call or visit the website onebathandclosets.com. All the testimonials are right there on the website. You can look at pictures of their great work, and you can request that free consultation. You won't know what they can do for you until you request that consultation and have David Duvall and his team come out. OneBathAndClosets.com is the website. OneBathAndClosets.com.
In times of need, get a full list of phone numbers, websites, and other important emergency information on the Demco Stormwatch page at 1045ESPN.com.
There it is, the extra mile, on the border of expected and extraordinary, for those willing to go further, like vans customized for work or play, with safety and tech to keep you connected. Supported by a 5-star sales, service, and finance team, and backed by the 1-star you know. So go the extra mile. It's never crowded, because so few have what it takes to go there. Mercedes-Benz Vans.
Gulf Coast Bank and Trust is giving our customers the power to bank anywhere, anytime during this challenging event. And we're right there with you. Our mobile banking app is a smart way to manage your money and time. Gulf Coast Bank and Trust, the bank that cares about you.
The best kept secret in town is out. Discover Tallulah at the Renaissance Hotel on Bluebonnet.
Hello, Samantha, dear, I hope you're feeling fine. And it won't be long until I'm with you all the time. But until then, I spend my money up right down on my last dime. Call in Baton Rouge. I'm ready, what you put me on through. Gotta send my love down the
When is a taco more than just a taco when it's Government Taco? Voted best tacos 3 years in a row by 225 Magazine, Government Taco puts the most delicious spin on tacos the capital area has ever seen. With creative combinations like the Magna Carrot, the Filibuster, or the Steak of the Union. Plus perfect tortilla chips paired with the best salsa and queso you've ever had. And happy hour every day from 3 to 6 p.m. and all day on Thursday. Government Taco, 5621 Government Street.
I've been doing business with Luba for 25 years. They're dependable, trustworthy. It's just the attention to detail with our clients.
Our folks have years and years of experience. They're highly trained professionals. But many companies have that asset. What I'd like to think makes Luba a bit different is that we use those talents in a way that truly is dedicated to serving the needs of the folks who depend on us.
Dylan Cruz here to tell you about Six Rings Baseball and Softball Camp. If you live on the North Shore and play ball, go to Six Rings Camps with former LSU assistant coach Dan Canaveri. His knowledge is second to none, and your child will improve and have fun doing it. Camps were held at Coquille Park and Six Rings Academy in Covington with 4 sessions over the summer. Full day and morning only sessions are available from ages 7 to 13. Go to sixringsbaseball.com.
On Thursdays, OTB will continue to bring you the latest from Saints and Tigers camp. The Hoodats get ready to take on the Chargers. Plus, a brand new edition of Munchies with Chef Michael Johnson. Off the bench, 7 to 10 a.m., 104.5 ESPN.
This is Hunt Palmer on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Well, you call it Twitter, you call it X, whatever you want to call it these days. It's not real life. A lot of bullies on there who probably aren't in real life, and a lot of people throwing stuff off the wall. It's quite an interesting place. But it's not real life. And a lot of times there are arguments back and forth on Twitter or Instagram or whatever that are really dumb and don't mean anything. Where I'm going with this is there is one thing that got branded via social media, I think, and has really been a thing and has been a benefit to LSU. And it's the moniker of DBU. Now, this is not all Twitter. Like Corey Webster and them came up with that back a little before Twitter. But that's where things kind of grow. Young people are on Twitter, and when I'm talking about young people, I'm talking about recruitable athletes. And when you can brand yourself as DBU and continue to pull in elite level recruits and send them to the NFL and have them on the national stage on Saturdays and Sundays and then brag about it on Twitter, people pay attention. They notice, and it matters. And it hurt when Corey Raymond moved on because he was so instrumental in a lot of that. But LSU still carries that moniker. And we hear it a lot in recruiting, but we heard it again yesterday from a place that I didn't realize that we were going to hear it. I had no idea that Deuce Chestnut had an affinity for LSU. Of course, he came here from Syracuse, but he's a guy from the East Coast that all of a sudden shows up and he's now playing at LSU. And he said yesterday, it's his dream.
I mean, LSU is DBU. Everybody knows that. Any school that says they're DBU just is trying to be a part of the conversation. LSU has always been DBU. I kind of watched guys like Patrick Peterson and Tyrann Mathieu growing up, so LSU's been my dream school since a child. Everybody know I wanted to go to LSU coming out of high school. Obviously, things ain't go that way, but, you know, God plans and able to get me here, and I'm just grateful for it.
I had no idea. Everybody knew I wanted to go to LSU to high school. It didn't work out. Well, he goes to Syracuse and plays really well for a couple of years, and here he is, and he's not alone as transfers in. Major Burns transferred in. Greg Brooks transferred in. Denver Harris transferred in. Zy Alexander transferred in. Like, you've got your Sage Ryan, your Terrence Welch, but a lot of guys transferred in, and it's difficult sometimes to create leadership when you've got so many transfers and things turn over as violently as they have at LSU the last 2 years. But while I would say that Major Burns is the leader of the LSU defense and leader of the secondary, Deuce Chestnut said he's taking on a leadership role too.
Helping each other out. No, I'm not the only corner in the room, so, and I know how I can get losing a corner. You know how we lost Garrett Williams last year in Syracuse, and somebody needs to step up. So I know how we need the whole room, not just the first two corners to be great. We need everybody to be great. So just knowing the game and trying to teach the younger guys that so they can be more confident and play faster out there.
If they can figure it out in the secondary, LSU can be really good. I think if LSU figures it out in the secondary, they can achieve anything they want. I really do. I don't think it's quite that simple. They're not the only variable, but they're one of the biggest ones. And so Deuce Chestnut's going to have to play a huge role in that. He's listed at 5'11", 205. He looks like a smaller corner, but he spoke about that yesterday saying, he realizes that he's got to do some other things.
Just my IQ on the field, just knowing, like I said before, the concepts, knowing how the offense works and stuff like that, being more experienced and playing more football, just knowing more in the game. So I think that helped me a lot, just knowing a lot of football, basically.
He's found himself around the football for a couple of years at Syracuse. Like he's made a lot of interceptions as a freshman, had a lot of pass breakups last year. And I saw a play on Saturday when I was out at practice where he got beat. Brian Thomas beat him. And the throw was just a little underthrown. If it's a quality throw, it's going to be a big play. The ball was just underthrown. And Chestnut closed just quickly enough and got his hand right to the catch point and knocked it away. And that's not a perfect play by a DB because you got beat a little bit. But he used his instincts and his hands and his ball skills to knock a ball away. And I think there's something to the fact that he fancies himself as a heady player, as a guy who studies film, as a guy who understands football and knows where to be, because he doesn't look like Patrick Peterson. He doesn't look like Derek Stingley. He doesn't look like Thorold Simon or Corey Webster. He's smaller than them. But he's got some really positive attributes that are going to need to shine through this year. Now, the other part that really helps you out as a corner is to work against one of the best receiver rooms in the country every single day.
Very talented. You got guys that got versatility all across the board. You got different kind of guys. You got speed burners, you got route runners, and you got guys that can go up and get the ball. So every day you got to compete and work. If you're not competing, you're going to get embarrassed out there, basically. So every day you got to compete, and they're going to give you good work.
I liked the interview that Deuce Chestnut did yesterday. I thought it was insightful, and he's going to have to be a big piece to LSU's defense this coming season. We'll transition now to Brian Kelly's comments earlier today after practice. If you missed the top of the show, Denver Harris is handling a personal issue. Kelly hopes that he's back this weekend. Mason Smith has just been banged up, had a little bit of a sprained ankle, had to come out of practice briefly today. Nothing significant, but he just continues to be a little bit banged up out there at practice. I want to talk about the offensive line, and Kelly talked about the offensive line. Yesterday, if you're listening to the show, I gave you my three most indispensable pieces to LSU's roster this coming football season. Not the best players on the team, the guys whose absence would create the most negative effect. And I had Jaden Daniels third, I had Harold Perkins second, and I had Will Campbell first. And what I told you was, I know that if Jaden Daniels comes out, which is not ideal, that Garrett Nussmeier is going to come in. And you'll probably take away a little quarterback run. You probably add a little running back run, and you add a little bit of gunslinger mentality to the offense. But Garrett Nussmeier can play at this level. It's bad. It's not catastrophic. If Harold Perkins were to go down, you would lose his dynamic playmaking ability as far as creating turnovers and spying the quarterback and playing inside linebacker, but shifting down to rush the passer. But you'd still have Omar Spates in the middle and Greg Penn in the middle, who have been starting Power 5 linebackers, and you would still have Savion Jones, and you would still have Ovi Hufo, and you still have Braden Swinson, and guys who have played a lot and have some ability. It would be a step down, but I know what would happen. And I told you that I don't know what would happen if Will Campbell went down as far as how they would shuffle the offensive line, because you feel really good with Will Campbell, with Garrett Dellinger, with Charles Turner, with Miles Frazier, and with Emory Jones. That front five has started a lot of games, has worked together a lot over the last 2 years, and that's very quality. But what's after them? Kelly talked about that.
DJ Chester is doing a really nice job at center. We've gotten a lot of work with him in the second group. We've moved Martinez over to guard. He's doing a nice job for us there. Hurd's playing at the right tackle. Bordelon's playing at the left tackle. I really like, how they're coming along. That group in itself has done a really nice job as that, second unit and giving us some confidence in the depth.
So if you hear that, I still don't have my answer as to what happens if Will Campbell were to go down. You hear him saying that Hurd's playing right tackle on the second team. You hear him saying that Bordelon is working at tackle as well. You didn't hear Mason Lunsford's name in there. He's played a lot of football as a guard for Maryland, but he's been out for a little bit, so he's not necessarily front of mind at this point. I don't know that Dellier can go out and play guard. So it's either moving your right tackle and inserting a freshman at right tackle, or it's plugging a freshman in at left tackle if Campbell were to go down. I don't want to explore any of that. I'd like Will Campbell to be out there for a lot of snaps this coming fall. The question was asked to Kelly, or any of the second-team linemen he just mentioned, kind of pushing the guys for starting spots.
We'll see how things play out. We're really looking to see, who the 5 guys that we have out there right now, which you all know who they are, can somebody break into that top 5? And so these next few days, we'll take a closer look at it and see is there somebody that can break into that top 5. But that's kind of where it is right now.
I'll tell you this. I have had questions in the fall about LSU's offensive line dating back even to 2019. And we know the 2019 team won the Joe Moore Award for the best offensive line in the country. But I could probably go back and pull some of my sound from 2019, coming on the morning show every Friday at 7:30. Said, man, I just don't know about that offensive line. And Sadiq Charles became a really nice player for him out at left tackle, and Cushenberry was really, really good in there at center, which I don't know if we could have forecasted that level of play. And I don't know if that offensive line was the best in the country. I know that the guy behind it masked a little bit of any deficiency that may have happened. I mean, I don't know that Austin Deculus was an All-American player at right tackle. He was good. But Joe, pre-snap, understood, and his guys won off the ball so often on the outside that the ball was out so quickly, or he could manipulate the pocket and keep his eyes downfield and make plays. And so, I don't know, but they played well, certainly. But I didn't feel super comfortable entering 2020, 2021, or 2022. And it reared its ugly head in 2022 in the opener because they couldn't block Jared Verse. I will tell you now, 2 weeks from kickoff, as I sit here in the middle of August, I feel really good about LSU's offensive line. I think they've got an excellent first 5, and I feel very confident with a couple, like Martinez going in there to play guard. I'm okay with that. I think Emory Jones is capable of playing in a pinch. Nobody's backup left tackle or right tackle is all world. That's not a real thing. You're always going to be a little bit on edge when you have to put a reserve in there on the offensive line. But as far as that goes, I feel about as good about it as you can. Lunsford, Bordelon's coming along. Brad Davis inherited a mess when he got here last year. At this point, or 2 years ago, at this point, he's got a solid stable of options at offensive line. I think that's a very, very good thing. So that's Deuce Chestnut and Brian Kelly. We've got one more segment to go. We'll play some Take It or Leave It. Come back with us.
Hunt Palmer on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
LWCC is Louisiana Loyal, elevating and celebrating champions of Louisiana. The folks over at LWCC, they love celebrating champions of Louisiana. People love our state. They love our culture. They love the music and the food and New Orleans and the football. Like, that's well known. We should be admired as well. There are plenty of people in our state that are doing great things, and they're being very philanthropic in the process, and Corey Barr is one of those. Corey is a chef. He operates 3 businesses out of Monroe. Used that national acclaim, Food Network star, beat Bobby Flay, comes back, betters his home state. Being a Louisianian is important to Corey Barr. If you know somebody like Corey, nominated to be a champion of Louisiana, it could be a person, could be a nonprofit, could be a business. We want to tell their story LWCC wants to tell their story as part of their Champions of Louisiana program. Corey Barr is a champion of Louisiana. LWCC is Louisiana Loyal.
Our listeners fire off their opinions on the jimsfirearms.net hotline at 499-1045. Keep listening for your next chance to shoot us your thoughts with the jimsfirearms.net hotline on 1045 ESPN Baton Rouge. Follow us on Twitter at 1045ESPN to cast your vote in the Citizens Bank and Trust Poll of the Day. Vote daily inside Off the Bench, live at lunch, Hunt Palmer. And after further review, Citizens Bank and Trust brings you the Poll of the Day via Twitter at 1045ESPN.
The world's leaders in obesity research, obesity medicine, and obesity science are right here.
We're doing something that no one's ever done or trying to answer a question that no one's ever asked before.
Pennington is a real jewel when it comes to research.
We are finding the solutions to the world's worst chronic disease, which is obesity. Louisiana needs Pennington Biomedical.
Gulf Coast Bank and Trust is giving our customers the power to bank anywhere, anytime during this challenging event. And we're right there with you. Our mobile banking app is a smart way to manage your money and time. Gulf Coast Bank and Trust, the bank that cares about you.
Hi, I'm Brandon Landry, founder and CEO of Walk.
Hi, my name is Dr. Craig Green.
This is Ryan Terrio with HUDCoRoofing.com.
Hey, it's Matt Moscona. No matter how big your commercial roofing job, HUDCO can help.
My patients come to me because they trust that I can get the job done at a high level. Ryan Terrio and Richard Tilley have the same level of trust when it comes to roofing.
If you have a roofing issue, call HUDCO Roofing.
Give us a call, 364-1007, and we'll come to your house and give you a free inspection.
When is a taco more than just a taco? When it's Government Taco. Voted best tacos 3 years in a row by 225 Magazine, Government Taco puts the most delicious spin on tacos the capital area has ever seen. With creative combinations like the Magna Carrot, the Filibuster, or the Steak of the Union. Plus perfect tortilla chips paired with the best salsa and queso you've ever had. And happy hour every day from 3 to 6 p.m. and all day on Thursday. Government Taco, 5621 Government Street.
I've been doing business with Luba for 25 years. They're dependable, trustworthy. It's just the attention to detail with our clients.
Our folks have years and years of experience. They're highly trained professionals, but many companies have that asset. What I'd like to think makes Luba a bit different is that we use those talents in a way that truly is dedicated to serving the needs of the folks who depend on us.
Dylan Cruz here to tell you about Six Rings Baseball and Softball Camp. If you live on the North Shore and play ball, go to Six Rings Camp.
Charles Sandgriff joined me and Jimmy out for the next edition of Live at Lunch from Louis Cafe just outside the gates of LSU. Dwayne Colucci's with us, Matt Humans is with us, and Jacques Doucet from WAFB. Live at Lunch, 11 a.m. weekdays on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
You're listening to Hunt Palmer on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Yesterday, the headline, or I guess the tweet from Carolina Panthers camp said that Terrace Marshall was carted off the field during practice. After a little bit of time passed, a little more accurate information was made available. Marshall was allegedly driven off the field while seated in the cart because his back was uncomfortable. Doesn't sound like an awful situation for Terrace Marshall in Carolina. I don't believe the same can be said for Russell Gage, another former Tiger down in Tampa. He had a non-contact injury today at practice. Redemptorist product, LSU product. Knee injury, was carted off the field, and the reports are that that's going to end his season. So just a gut punch to Russell Gage down there in Tampa. Has carved out such a nice career after, stop me if I've heard this before, being the last guy in LSU's class as a local 2 or 3 star. Played a big role at LSU. and then has gone on to have a really nice NFL career. Started, of course, in Atlanta and now over to Tampa. But it sounds like he will not be available for this season, so that really stinks for Russell Gage. All right, let's play some Take It or Leave It.
All right, first one here. ESPN's Chris Mad Dog Russo says Bill Belichick may never make the playoffs again. Take it or leave it.
I'll leave that. I'll take it that he won't win a Super Bowl, but I think he'll make the playoffs. A lot of teams make the playoffs, and excuse me, he's still a good coach. But I think Tom Brady propped up some of those later Patriots teams because they just didn't have the skill guys. It was just so odd. And now you take Brady out of the equation and you try to do it with Mac Jones, and it's just not working. And oh, by the way, you've got the Bills, who have established themselves as a really strong team. You've got the Jets, who everybody thinks are going to be very good this year. The Dolphins are on the come up, and all of a sudden, this division that the Patriots just absolutely had on lockdown for 2 decades is not theirs anymore. And then you look at the conference as a whole, and you got Mahomes, and you got Burrow, and you got Herbert, and it's going to be tough sledding for the Patriots at this point. So I think they'll make the playoffs, but I would bet against Bill Belichick winning another Super Bowl.
Kansas is planning a full-scale renovation of its football stadium. Jayhawks are on the rise. Take it or leave it.
Go ahead and leave that. I do think there's no reason that Kansas can't be competitive with Houston and with South Florida, and you bring those Central Florida, Cincinnati. Like, you bring those teams in, Kansas should be able to compete with them. I think it's a long shot for them to compete with Oklahoma and Texas, but the newfangled Big 12 with Colorado in it, there's no reason Kansas can't rebrand itself a little bit, spend some money on football, do a little bit better recruiting, get some guys from the junior college ranks in Kansas where there are a ton of those, and be better than they have been. But on the rise, I'll pass on that.
Kevin Garnett says Anthony Davis will be an MVP in the next 2 years. Take it or leave it.
I'll leave it. You got to play some basketball to be an MVP. He's not going to play enough minutes to garner that. He's going to get hurt or take his rest days, and there are too many guys in the league who are better than him at this point that are playing more basketball than to sit here and say that Anthony Davis is about to win an MVP. I'll go ahead and leave that one pretty easily. That was a quick answer.
And for some reason, the Lakers decided to pay him $500 billion.
That's the way the NBA works, and he'll probably be disgruntled and one out of LA in the next 5 minutes because that's the way the NBA works too.
All right, last one here. The Saints signed former Tiger Darrell Williams.
Yeah.
Williams will have at least 20 carries. Take it or leave it.
20 carries. I'll take it. I think having him around makes easing Kendre Miller into the fold easier. And maybe Kendre Miller and the return of Kamara take away from those carries by Halloween. But I've still got 3 weeks where Kamara's not going to play, where Williams is the bell cow, and it just makes a lot of sense to have Darrell Williams kind of play second fiddle there, while Kendre Miller, who's one, recovering from an injury, but two, hasn't played, figured out. So you'd make me really have to start thinking about it if you got for like 50 carries, but at 20 for the first 3 weeks of the season, I think Darrell Williams does get to that number, and I think he's a fine signing. I think he's going to catch the football out of the backfield, certainly can pass protect, and he's just a pro playing for his hometown team. So, I mean, there was a time where the Saints didn't ever want any LSU guys, and now you've just got a cornucopia. William Clapp just blew the door open.
I guess it was Sean Payton.
Yeah, clearly. You get Will Clapp in there, and all of a sudden, oh, look at that. We got Tyron and Jarvis. Oh, look at that. We've got Darrell Williams. Oh, look at that. We've signed, I mean, who else did they sign?
Morrow.
Yeah, Foster Morrow. It's like, now it's just a free-for-all over there in New Orleans signing the hometown dudes. So, must have been Sean P. Just hates LSU. Comes to the pro day every year. Goes to Rufino's and eats. Tomlin's there, the whole crew, but just hates the Tigers. Whatever. That's it for Take It or Leave It here on this Wednesday. If you missed any of the show, we started things off with my thoughts from LSU's practice, plus some sound from Brian Kelly, updating the status of Denver Harris, updating the status of Mason Smith. So you can catch that at the top of the show. JD PicKell was great today. He's our guy from On3 Sports, host of The Hard Count. We went around the country with JD, with talking about championship contenders, programs that are for real. Started in the SEC, went to ACC, Big Ten, all the way around to the Pac-12 and Big 12 as well. So always love cutting it up with JD PicKell. It was a What If Wednesday. What if Jaden Daniels had left for the NFL? What if the PMAC doesn't get redone in 2 years? What if Michael Ford doesn't step out of bounds in Tuscaloosa? All those what ifs were answered in hour number one. Basketball non-conference schedule. I kind of like it. Some things I don't like. I kind of like it, though. We talked about that at the end of hour number one. I gave you some thoughts on SEC non-conference games early in this football season at 2 o'clock. We went through some Saints sound with Dennis Allen and their trip out to L.A. at 2:15, and then some LSU sound from Deuce Chestnut and Brian Kelly at 2:30. All of that is available on demand at 1045ESPN.com, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, on YouTube. You can find it anywhere you find your audio. And on YouTube, we'd really appreciate if you subscribe to Hunt on LSU and Hunt on Saints. That makes our world go round over there on YouTube. So check that out. We're back tomorrow. Our Thursday show is brought to you by Rouse's. We'll chat with Luke Johnson from out in Los Angeles. Get you ready for Saints and Chargers. Matt Moscona's about to drive you home on After Further Review. We're back tomorrow, same time, same place. It's the Hunt Palmer Show.